So we're going to go ahead and get launched into this nonprofit portal webinar. We're going to be covering what the new nonprofit portal is, what its various features are, what there is to come, and a few other things along those lines. We'll also be doing a live walkthrough demonstration of the portal. We'll all be walking through each and every aspect of it so you can see it in action. Additionally, along with the launch of the new nonprofit portal, we are launching, as Stacy mentioned, the Leadership and Adaptability Beacon. So we'll be going over that methodology as well, since the way that the Leadership and Adaptability Beacon will be scored will be based on the information that you input into the nonprofit portal. At any time, you can access the nonprofit portal at the domain charitynavigator.org/portal. Okay, so let's get into it. So what the nonprofit portal is it's a platform where nonprofits can interact with their ratings and profile, and it's largely organized around the Encompass beacons. So the Encompass beacons, as a reminder, are the 4 subdomains that make us the Encompass rating system, but star-rated organizations and even non-rated organizations can also benefit from them, as well as the portal. For instance, we'll have features later on that you'll see that everybody needs to access through the nonprofit portal in order to reach those benefits. Directly, what you can do on the portal is that nonprofits are going to be able to directly interface with Charity Navigator by submitting data and information to us that we can then use to create new ratings, and also update your profile on the Charity Navigator website. Additionally, you'll be able to review your rating and profile on this nonprofit portal, learn about Charity Navigator's methodology, and also look at tools that you could use to grow your organization and evolve it as well. So the things that are new to the portal that you'll be seeing are the pandemic response and leadership and adaptability beacon. We'll be getting into the specifics of those shortly. We are constantly evolving the new features that will be on this portal. We're launching today or have launched with the pandemic response and leadership and adaptability beacons because we wanted to get that out to you as soon as possible. But later on, we'll be talking about the features that you'll see in the future. Great. So take it away, Stephen.
Thanks, Masha. A year ago, Afira and I were just mentioning that we were having one of these nonprofit webinars to talk about Encompass. And at the time, we had were in the middle of the pandemic, and we were going to launch with the Finance and Accountability Beacon. And in the intervening year, we're now at the point where we're launching the final beacon on leadership and adaptability. But because we were in the middle of the pandemic this time last year and for the last year, you'll remember our CEO, Michael Thatcher, committed to making sure that those organizations that had been adversely affected by the pandemic, that we would not harm them through a rating, right? We would not penalize organizations, for example, who may have spent down reserves to make ends meet because revenue stopped coming in, or had to make additional investments as it relates to increase in demand for services. The responses that we've seen have been absolutely amazing. We'll talk about sort of an opportunity for some storytelling in the adaptability part of leadership and adaptability, but on the commitment that we made, what we're asking you to do is to actually just fill out a quick form, and Masha will orient you on to where that is on the portal in a moment. But really, if you've been adversely affected, if your organization has been adversely affected, you know, our solution is that we will not, you know, we will hold your current rating if there's a down rating as a result of your finances or accountability and transparency metrics somehow being adversely affected by the pandemic. And so the only thing we're asking you to do is to fill out a very brief form to just let us know, so that we can tell donors, we're holding back this rating in the current year, please use last year's, and here's what happened, here's their story, and why and how they've been affected by the pandemic. And so that's the request, and that's what we're asking you to do around the pandemic. So let's go on. the as we said, we're launching the fourth and final beacon, and it's as we're launching these new domains, it's I would say introductory in some ways, that we want to do something that's both meaningful to you, meaningful to donors, and is hopefully low lift in terms of the amount of time you have to spend, providing some of this data. This is really the first run at this too, and so we're really looking to hear from you about what's working and what's not, both in terms of the portal, but also in this case, in terms of the methodology that we're going to review. We've spent as an organization the last 4 months doing a lot of reading on leadership and strategy and adaptability, doing a lot of talking to experts, doing a lot of talking to nonprofit organizations. We went out and talked to a lot of people. We surveyed donors, we surveyed nonprofits, spoke with experts, spoke with leaders in nonprofits, spoke with management consultants, and this is where we landed in this first version for leadership and adaptability. We're looking at 3 subdomains here: strategy, leadership, and adaptability. And we're looking, for just some basic evidence of the following pieces, right? In strategy, we're looking for evidence of strategic thinking, and that there's been some goal setting that's been done, and that the organization has a set of goals that it can reference. You can articulate your mission and vision. In leadership, we're looking at both an internal lens. Is there an investment in leadership development? And an external lens around mobilizing resources for mission. We'll get into what that means a little bit more in a second. And then in adaptability, we're providing you the opportunity to tell your story and tell us how you've adapted to external changes. And we have not had opportunities for storytelling on our profile pages in the past. We're now starting to dabble in that. We want to sort of imbue the data that we have with you telling your story as an organization. So under strategy, as I made reference to, we've got, we're asking for a mission, and we will pull in the portal the mission you have listed on your 990, and then you can choose to keep that or you can edit it. You'll note that a lot of the 990 submissions we get in are in all caps, and so one to grow on here is to maybe at least take it out of that, but that's just part of the automated process that that we have with the IRS. So anyway, feel free to edit and revise that statement if your accountant or whomever didn't submit it accurately on the 990. We want to hear your vision, and if you've got a vision statement, provide that. And then we want to hear your most important strategic goals. We're asking for up to 3. And then we're asking you to categorize them. And this is a really important point. So there's an open-ended part to it, as you'll see when Masha shows you it, but there's also a structured part to it. So the goal can be anything, but could you also let us know, what type of goal is this? Is this a new program? Is this you're going to grow an existing program? Are you focusing on core work? Are you investing in the capacity of your organization? Are you doing other types of investments in your cause area around advocacy? We're interested to have you categorize those strategic goals. And so that will allow us over time to do something, I think, ultimately more interesting with the data in aggregate. But it's a good, think about this. You're submitting this data, it's for an evaluation, but it's also things that donors are going to use to take a look on your profile page. So you want to make sure that it's quality, that the answers are well thought out, and we also want to have a nice mix between, unstructured, fill stuff out, and some structured data that users can look at. So that's strategy. Leadership has 2 components. One, Are you investing in leadership development? And we're still going to give you full credit, even if the answer is no. But if the answer is no, we're going to want you to let us know, like, what are the impediments to investing in leadership development? And if the answer is yes, tell us what the investment has been. It could mean lots of different things, right? It could be, coaching. It could be professional development in other types of ways. It could be just good feedback mechanisms. We heard from a number of experts that just being really clear with staff about what are the opportunities for leadership in the review process, and as you're thinking about job descriptions, that's a really legitimate way to think about leadership development. So feel free to take that question in any way that you would want to take it, that just describes the investment. The other part of leadership, and we heard this is the thing we probably heard the most loudly and most clearly in the interviews and surveys that we've done, is that leaders focus externally, right? They mobilize resources for their mission. And that mobilizing can mean lots of different things, right? And so we want you to tell us, how are you engaging in the external world as leaders in your organization? And by the way, we've had questions about, do you mean the executive director? Do you mean the board? Do you mean other staff? You take it however you want to take it. I think everyone obviously has an opportunity for leadership. If you're a program director, you are a program leader, and we're interested in hearing those stories. So it's staff and or board that we're looking for, and you can see some of the choices here. They really range from building strategic partnerships, participating or building in networks, participating in leadership and engaging in leadership activities, thought activities, raising awareness, community building, training and organizing, and yes, local, state, and federal policy advocacy. That all of those, and maybe there's something other that you're doing, and there's an opportunity for you to let us know that too, right? And so we're really interested to hear what you are doing in terms of your external focus, and there's an opportunity to describe that. Finally, there's adaptability. And if you're externally focused, you're listening to the outside world, and you're doing some sense making, and then you're figuring out, how do I need to shift my organization to meet those changing conditions? This is the storytelling piece we were talking about at the beginning. We want to give you full credit. Just tell us your story about. We all know we've experienced lots of different changes, especially in the last year and a half. Tell us your story. Tell donors your story. Tell the site users that come to Charity Navigator, tell them your story. And if you want to use, some digital pieces to that, or an image, or an annual report, feel free to do that as well. Not necessary, but certainly encouraged if you have it. And with that, let me turn it back to Masha, who's actually going to show you where all that exists, and you can know exactly where to do that stuff in our new nonprofit portal.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. I'll be going through a walkthrough of the portal. What you'll see is a general overview of what it looks like and how to navigate through it. I'll also be talking through the login and sign up process, the process for verifying your account, so that we know that you as an individual are good to represent the nonprofit that you say you're associated with. And then also talking through what's even just talked about, the pandemic response and leadership and adaptability beacons. Okay, well, give me one quick moment to set this up, and then we'll get started with that walkthrough. One moment, it's loading a bit here. Okay, I think we should be good to go now. Okay, so you can access the portal by going to charitynavigator.org/portal, and that will get you to where you need to be. So here we see the sign up and login screens. Most of you are going to be creating a new account, so we'll go ahead and navigate to sign up and enter in your email address. We prefer a work email address associated with it. That makes it easier for us to verify your account if you do so. And then any appropriate password that fits our criteria here. Okay, once you have that filled out, you'll go ahead and sign up, and it'll take you to a second point in the screen. Now, oh, excuse me, yeah, one moment. Okay, so you'll see a step 2 here, and what you need to do here is associate your account with the nonprofit that you're associated with. So we'll go ahead and I'll enter in my information here. Since I've done this a few times, I have some stuff filled out already. And then go ahead and enter in your nonprofit EIN. So I've forgotten Charity Navigator's EIN, so let me look that up real quick. One moment. Great, okay. So you can copy that and paste that EIN from anywhere, and then enter that into the nonprofit EIN here. And then that should autofill with your charity name right there. And if that's correct, then go ahead and click complete sign up. Okay, great. And so now you'll be in the portal. If at any point you are not able to reach the screen, it may be because you have a pop-up blocker enabled and you need to enable pop-ups in order to get here. So if that's the case, you'll see a screen here with instructions about how to enable pop-ups. And once you follow those instructions, you should be able to get into the portal. So we're now on the home screen here. You can scroll through it. At the top here, you'll see the main navigation buttons. There's the home page, and then there are also pages associated with each of the Encompass beacons. On this home page, that's where you'll see your set of tasks that you can do on this portal. We have the main COVID-19 pandemic response task and also obtain leadership and adaptability scores that Stephen talked through recently. We're constantly adding new tasks, so check back in to see what new tasks there'll be as you continue with this. So the way to navigate through these tasks on the home page is twofold. One, you can click on these tasks individually, and that will take you to the appropriate page. You can also click next step, and that'll take you to the next open task. So if I click next step here, you'll see that takes me to the verify your account screen. We'll click homepage again, and you can see I can also navigate that way by clicking verify your account. So on verify your account, there's a few different steps that you'll have to take. First of all, you will have to verify your email address. It's a little bit separate from verifying your account, just so we know that the email address you signed up with, that you have access to it, you're the correct owner of that email address. After you verify your email address by going into your inbox and clicking a link in an email that we've sent you, there might be a few more steps to complete to verify your account. It depends a bit on your status and a bit on the background going on in here. For instance, if you're already an official charity representative for your organization, then you won't need to re-verify that. That'll already be into the system. And so the only thing you'll need to do is just verify your email account. Okay, so once you are done with the verifying your account process, you'll move on to the next step. Now, it's very important that you verify your account because throughout the portal, you'll have the ability to submit any information that you want. If your account is not verified, then that information you submit will not be made public on your charity's profile until you have verified your account. But we'll go ahead and we'll move on to the pandemic response page right now. So this is the pandemic response. This is where you'll fill in information about how COVID-19 has impacted your organization. I'll scroll through this slowly so you can see what those questions are. And of course, you can always go back to this yourself by going to the portal through charitynavigator.org/portal. And so see, it's a set of 5 questions. It's hopefully not too labor intensive. These are scored just based on completion. And an analyst will be going through and making sure that you haven't entered anything in gobbledygook or anything like that, but basically we will accept whatever you choose to put in here about how your organization adapted to the pandemic. So once you have filled this out in totality, and this does need to be filled out in totality to work, you'll go ahead and click submit, and your answers to the pandemic will be submitted. You can also go back and edit this at any time, although your answers will only be republished on your profile during the release cycle, and we'll talk through the release cycle soon. Okay, so then the next thing we can do is we can again click next step to get to the next thing, or we can click these buttons themselves. So I'll just go ahead and click this, and that will take you to the leadership and adaptability button here. You can also navigate to that same page by clicking the leadership and adaptability button up top over here. That's taking you to the same place. And so on this leadership and adaptability page, you'll see this bar on the side. This menu is a little bit different. This pertains now to the specific leadership and adaptability tasks. What you'll want to do on this page, your main goal is to go in and give us information about leadership and adaptability so you can earn your leadership and adaptability beacon. This page right here is just an overview of that beacon. To navigate to the form where you will enter in your information, there's a few different ways to get there. You can click this link right here, complete leadership and adaptability assessment, and I'll talk through why this is checked in a moment. It's actually a somewhat interesting detail. Or you can alternatively click update score. That'll take you to the same place, the form. Or finally, we have the different subdomains of the leadership and adaptability listed here, and you can click on any of those, and that will navigate you to the form with the appropriate tab open here. Okay, so this is the leadership and adaptability assessment that Stephen talked through in detail previously. Again, I'll scroll through these slowly so that you can see how this form works and all of the various questions. There is, as mentioned, pre-populated your organization mission statement here, which you can edit. There's also space for you to enter in your vision and enter in those 3 most important strategic goals. So the way to navigate to the next page is to click Save for Later or Next. Now it's not going to go to the next page or Save for Later. You see, if I try to click Next here, it won't let me go through until I've actually completed this form here. So I'll go ahead and do that just as an example. Type in some nonsense and get to the character count that we have. Great, okay, and then when I click next, this should let me proceed. You can also click Save for Later. This will keep you on the same screen, but save your scores as well. And we'd like to have this option in case there might be one person filling this out who knows the information, but needs to consult with somebody else about this information. You might need to return to this at a later day, and if that's the case, instead of just submitting this, you can click Save for Later, or Next will also save your answers without submitting it and take you to the next screen. So now here, you'll see the Leadership tab. You can enter in whether your organization invested in leadership development, and the follow-up question will change based on your answer. And then this is the mobilization effort section that Stephen was mentioning. You'll want to click through any of these that apply and then enter in the detail about that here for the full points to get that. Next, I'll go over the adaptability tab. Here we have the one question about adapting, and then also a space, and this is completely optional. The only section here that is not worth any points but will be published to your profile if you think it's useful information for donors to have, where you can upload any sort of digital storytelling tool in PDF form. Okay, so once you have filled out that form, you'll go ahead and navigate to this last tab, Review and Submit for Rating. On this tab, you'll be able to review your answers, and then if you are satisfied with those answers, go up here and click Submit for Scoring. So unlike Pandemic Response, you will be able to submit an incomplete form if you choose to click that Submit for Scoring button. Well, what will happen if you do have some incomplete answers, as listed here, is that you will only be given the points for the answers that you completed. So I filled out the strategy section in its entirety, and so I'd get the 40 points for that. But I would not get the remaining 60 points for the leadership and adaptability beacons. So if I submitted this as is, I would only get 40 out of 100 points for my organization's leadership and adaptability score. And you'll also see, if you haven't filled it out completely, you'll get this warning here which will tell you where you need to go back to fill it out. But if you do, you can submit this for scoring and it will be scored. And again, you can go back and edit this at any time, and those edits will be uploaded to your profile during the release cycle. So for both the pandemic response and the leadership and adaptability assessment pages, your answers will be uploaded as they are written to your profile, whether you are star rated or Encompass, or even if you are not yet rated under the Encompass system, but you could be under this leadership and adaptability beacon or some other beacons, those will show up as well. And your scores will appear on your profile as well. Okay, and so I wanted to mention here why this is checked off. This is an important detail, even though I haven't yet, you've seen I haven't submitted anything. That's because unlike our previously existing star rated portal, you can have multiple staff members from the same organization attached to the same nonprofit and submit information on its behalf. So in a previous demo, under a different email and a different account, I, under the Charity Navigator EIN, have submitted a leadership and adaptability assessment, and so that's why it's showing it as submitted here, because somebody else has submitted a leadership and adaptability assessment for Charity Navigator, even though I haven't in this session specifically. Okay, so those are the main things that you can do on the portal. You can also see up here the different beacons with the additional pages on those to come. You see I haven't submitted this yet, so I'm getting this notification sign. I'm fine with losing my unsaved changes. Okay, but with the finance and accountability beacon, you'll just see here, we'll have more here coming soon. Under impact and results, you'll be able to click this link here to join a waitlist to potentially get an impact and results score. We're working on developing that system out and sharing that with all nonprofits. If you do sign up for the waitlist, that is not a guarantee that you will receive an impact and results score, but it will increase the chances that that will happen. Finally, here we have the culture and community beacon, which you can submit information to. If you go ahead and click this link, this will take you to GuideStar, where we are pulling information from what you submit to GuideStar to Charity Navigator itself, and you, if you fill this out, could get the 5 points for the culture and community beacon, or sorry, the full 100 points, but it's worth 5% of your overall Encompass rating score. Okay, so that is the overview of the Charity Navigator nonprofit portal. Again, I just want to reemphasize one more time, we'll have more tasks coming soon, so be sure to keep on checking in with this, even if you have completed all of these steps once you're done. Okay, great. So I'll go back to the presentation and we'll pass that off.
Thanks, Masha. That was great. As you can see, the portal is going to provide you with incredible opportunities to speak directly to donors who visit our site by allowing you to have access and to really have full control in some cases as to what gets published on your nonprofit portal page. The other thing that the portal will allow us to do is communicate more efficiently, effectively, and routinely with you, and sometimes in ways that may be very specific to your organization or your cause area. As we update things, you may get notifications that there are new updates available, and to log into your portal to provide that information, or if certain bits of information expire and need to be refreshed on an annual basis. In some cases, you may receive notifications alerting you to that. If you have completed partially, for example, some of the surveys, but haven't submitted for scoring, and we know that we're nearing a release, you may get a prompt to remind you to complete and submit so that you don't miss out. The interesting thing that we're doing with Encompass that is a bit of a deviation from the way we've handled the star rating system in the past is that Encompass is very agile. It's incredibly iterative. It's an ongoing, continuous process. And as you see here, the process is based not just on the feedback that we collect every time we have a new or modified methodology that we are considering, but also on the learnings that we receive, what we learn from donors and nonprofits after we have released something. And the reason that's important is that it allows us to tweak and modify even something that we might have released just a few months prior. So it's a very iterative process. In some cases, the analysis that we see with data coming in corroborates what we're doing, validates it. In some cases, it demonstrates that we may need to adjust thresholds for organizations, let's say, that might fall below a certain revenue or a certain size. And that's something that we're open to and something that we're readily doing throughout this process. But in addition to being agile, it's also very structured. We're not releasing information continually. Information, data, your ratings, we anticipate to be adjusting, modifying about 3 times a year, falling in summer, fall, and spring with specific attention to steer clear of giving season and end of the year giving, because the last thing we want to do is modify scores at a time when you may be relying on those scores, right, to solicit end of year giving and giving season donations. And so we're very sensitive to that. We're a nonprofit as well. We're in the sector with you. So we get that there are certain times a year that are not ideal for releasing new scores and new measures. And so we'll be steering clear of giving season. And the releases are structured around those dates. And what that means, unfortunately, is that in most cases, if we receive data from you or from our peers, for instance, Candid, that we also consume data from, but if that data comes to us, flows to us, even if it's the day after a scheduled release, you may not see that data or your scores adjusted for a few months until the next scheduled release. And I say in most cases because there will be some instances, for instance, in the portal, you'll have the opportunity to add or modify your URL address. You know, that's something that might happen on a rolling basis, that we may publish on your site and adjust that before the next release cycle. But substantive data that will affect your score, for example, is likely going to stick to that structured summer, fall, spring schedule. So worry not if you've submitted data and you're wondering, is it there? Do they have it? Are they going to use it? Yes, but at a later date, more than likely if you've missed the cycle. Next slide. Okay, so as Masha had alluded, the star-rated portal is still up and running, and organizations that have been issued a star rating have also been paired with one of our analysts, and that portal is based on one representative from your organization having been verified and validated to administer information and kind of provide us with direct information through that portal for the star rating. The Encompass portal that Masha just went through deviates from that a bit, right? We're expanding capabilities. We recognize that in some cases, the questions you're being asked and the beacons that we're assessing may be best answered by various members of leadership within your organization. And so we've relaxed that restriction and allowed for multiple folks, once they've been verified, to enter and submit information into the portal. The same logins will be used across all platforms, and existing official charity representatives do not need to re-verify their account. So if you've already been verified through the STAR portal system, you don't have to go through the re-verification system. In the future, there are plans to merge the two systems and streamline it, make it more efficient. That's not happening now, but that is something that may happen in the future. For now, if you're a star-rated organization, what Masha just presented, the leadership and adaptability and the methodology that Stephen went through, and the pandemic response applies as much to your organization as it does to an Encompass rated organization. And the key here for star-rated organizations is to remember that we're still publishing those beacons on your site. At the moment, it's not affecting your score. It's not being worked into that star rate, that ultimate overall star rating score, but it is being published. And so donors who are interested will still see what your strategic plans are, what your goals are, what your values are, some of those things that we went through with leadership and adaptability. And right now, really key to communicate the pandemic. How has the pandemic affected your organization? It may tie in many cases with your story of adaptability. For many of us, we've been forced to adapt as a result of the pandemic, and that is a big story to tell, and donors are paying attention. So if you're a star-rated organization, please do submit the information. It's as essential, I think, for donors interested in your organization. The other thing that I wanted to kind of point out about the Encompass rating for leadership and adaptability, since we're presenting on that, is that the leadership and adaptability score in and of itself will not be sufficient at this time to generate an overall Encompass score. That doesn't mean you won't get a leadership and adaptability score. Similar with culture and community, in and of itself is not enough to garner an overall Encompass score, but you will see that you've been rated on leadership and adaptability. You've been rated on culture and community. The reason being is at this time, those two beacons, we have not built enough rigor into the metrics yet, as we have for finance and accountability and for impact and results. And when I say yet, I think it bears repeating, and Stephen also alluded to this early on. What you're seeing in the leadership and adaptability in the form of the strategic questions that we're asking and the questions we're asking about leadership development is a foundation. It's a basis for which we plan on building more rigor and asking more questions in the future that may tie into what you're telling us now. And the reason we want to head, ultimately in this direction is because it gives us an opportunity to better tell your story. If you tell us these are your three main, strategic goals that your organization is working towards, we may circle back to you in a future iteration and ask you to tell us the story of how things have worked out. What's been a success? What has not worked out so well? Where were the learnings? What were the outcomes that were tied to those? This helps tell that story that ultimately may be very compelling to donors in terms of helping you fundraise through our site. So next slide. All right, so the portal, as I've said, is just at its early stages. It's just a beginning. There's a lot we're going to be building into it. We hope will be helpful to you. In addition to those additional tabs that Masha pointed out, the impact and results, finance and accountability, those beacons, each one will have a tab of its own with more and more information that you'll be able to provide and input. But in addition to that, we're going to continue to work with our peer organizations, such as Candid, GuideStar. We're currently already ingesting information that you're providing through their site. We're going to work with more of those peer partners. And the greatest, the biggest reason we do that is to simplify the process for you as much as possible, to make it as efficient as possible. So you don't have to submit data in two places. So if there's something that we're interested in that we think site users to Charity Navigator may be interested in, that we know a partner organization is already collecting, we'll partner with them to the best of our ability and pull that information in to the portal and have it available for you already within your own portal page. We're also looking at various tools that we can use to or provide through the portal to support you and your efforts, your organization's efforts, whether it's improving capacity, whether it's developing better strategic plans, or digital annual reporting. There's a lot that we're considering, a lot of partners that we're looking to work with to bring those apps and tools directly to you with efficiency and ease. And we do that because we want to help. We want to be a resource for nonprofit organizations. But given the limited capacity we have to be able to help in a more deep dive, individualized manner, we've figured that providing a resource library, providing tools, providing access to whatever we can to guide you in ways that will ultimately improve your organization's ability to perform and maybe even your ratings ultimately as well. And so that's the direction we're going, and you'll see a lot of those supports show up in the portal, and we'll be sending out communications when those are available as well. Next, and I think right now we have some time left, and Stacy is going to facilitate some Q&A. I know we've gotten some questions in the chats, and we'll try to get around to as many as we can.
Thanks, Afira. Oh, okay, great. Well, now we'll begin the question and answer portion of our webinar. If you have not already shared your question with us, please do so now. Again, we will do our very best to get to as many as we can. Again, a reminder, this webinar is being recorded, and a copy of the broadcast that includes a copy of the slide deck as well as screenshots from the nonprofit portal will be made available to you 24 hours after the conclusion of this broadcast. Okay, so let's get to our first question. We did get quite a number of questions, so here we go. Our first question, can an organization submit a 2019 990, a Form 990, to obtain an updated rating rather than having to wait for the IRS to release the 2019 990s?
The short answer is not right now. We get that data directly from the IRS. There's some potential we could do it in the future, but there is some valid reasons to accept the data directly from the IRS in terms of its validity. So it's something we'd have to like really think through. What we do want to expose through the portal ultimately is to let you know when we get it and which next release you can expect to see that, and you can see the rating. So that is something that will be in that finance and accountability section moving forward.
Thanks, Stephen. Our next question, I think quite a few people are probably thinking the same. We are a small nonprofit and do not have the budget or staff or bandwidth to do an audit. What other tools can be used to raise a rating?
It's a really good question. Let me just say first that there are some parameters on this audit question that are worth noting and that we're actually looking at a threshold of. First of all, if you're under $250,000 operating budget, that question goes away. We don't consider that question. It's not included in the rating. From 251,000 up to $1 million, we're looking either for an audit or an independent financial review. Often an independent financial review is a little less expense and less time spent. And so if you're indicating that on your 990 that that's what you're doing, you get full credit there. What we're looking at for this next release is potentially bumping up that threshold of not considering. It's right now at 250. We're looking at where's the point when the majority of organizations don't have an audit or financial review, and we sort of want to set it at that point. We know 250 and under, majority of organizations do not have audits or independent financial reviews. So there may be a change to be looking out for. We'll let you know before the release of bumping that up a little bit. Matt Viola and Kevin Doyle and our finance and accountability team are taking a really close look at that. Having said that, you now have two other opportunities to improve your rating, right? There's the leadership and adaptability, and there's the culture and community going to candid for how we listen. So you could jump right in today and be doing things to improve your rating for the July release.
Thanks, Stephen. Here's another question. We are beginning a strategic planning process, so we cannot respond to the leadership and adaptability score until October. How will this affect us?
Well, two suggestions there. One, you could use your existing strategic goals and then change them when they change for your organization. In fact, I would encourage folks to do that. We assume they're going to change over time. We know a future version of this, of the methodology, will maybe get a little bit deeper in the analysis therein. But for now, as those change, feel free to update them. And so that's probably the easiest or most straightforward answer. The other thing is, it goes back to what Ophira was talking about, and that's releases. We will have another release in the very beginning of October, before giving season. And then the next release will likely be, the spring release will likely be in March or April at the latest. And so if you miss the nice thing about 3 releases a year, if you miss this one, it's not too far off for the next one. And so you could manage that either way based on your comfort level with your current strategic goals.
I think if I can just jump in too to underscore what you're saying here, Stephen, for clarity's sake, when we say 3 releases, it doesn't mean that information that we released, let's say in the summer, can't be updated. It means everything gets released again. So if you've updated leadership and adaptability, even if in our versioning process, we are highlighting something new, a new metric in our fall release, you can answer or respond to that new metric and type of information, but also anything else you've updated between those 2 releases will get re-released and your page will be refreshed and updated. So I think that bears kind of clarifying that those releases are open opportunities for you to modify and update everything or anything that is available for you to enter into the nonprofit portal.
That's right.
Thanks, Ophira. So we have a question here. And we're wondering if a nonprofit believes that they have lost stars already due to the pandemic. So if it's a star-rated nonprofits, we are now in the month of June, and they believe that they have lost stars as a result of the pandemic. Is that in fact true or not?
It's not something that we've seen per se. Most of the 990s that have been reviewed are pre-pandemic 990s. However, if you feel like you're in that position, I would recommend, in fact, filling out the pandemic response form and then contacting us through the existing STAR rep portal and letting us know that you feel like, perhaps there's a 990 that we've looked at that it is pandemic affected. So just, I would take those 2 steps.
Great. Here's another one. If I am currently accessing the charity rep portal, so if you are a star-rated charity, do I have to create a new login or can I use my pre-existing login?
I can speak to that. The answer is no, you do not need to create a new login. You can use your pre-existing login, and we recommend that you do use your pre-existing login, as that will probably help streamline the verification process.
Great, thanks, Masha. Will the current rating be held for both fiscal year 2020 and fiscal year 2021, or just for 1 year?
Current plan is this year. We know that 990s and fiscal years are different for different organizations, right? So we know that there's some mix in there that we've got to manage, and how we come out of the pandemic is still an open question mark. And so, if it turns out, 6 months from now or 9 months from now, it's looking like 2021 numbers are going to be pretty affected as well. I mean, I think we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And, obviously, if it looks like we have, if we're seeing pretty deleterious effects in 2021 of the pandemic and they're coming through and we're hearing that from you, we'll make that adjustment.
Conversely, here's a question. If we weren't adversely affected by the pandemic, how can we enter information in regards to the pandemic response?
That's a great question too. I would, you don't have to submit that pandemic response form then. And however, I would leverage the adaptability question in leadership and adaptability to tell your story still over the last year. We do know that there are many organizations who actually thrived, in different ways during these times. And so tell that story. Tell the story of how, how you adapted, and maybe it was all in all, you saw more revenue, you had more services, whatever that story is, we're really interested in hearing it.
Okay, great. Okay, here's switching gears just slightly. Someone's asking about the impact and results rating. So if an organization has submitted information regarding the impact and results beacon, is there an update regarding the next release for that?
Yeah, so in regards to that, we are soon releasing some ratings that we have processed after nonprofits have filled out the impact and results information in that link that I demonstrated there. If you are one of those nonprofits, you should have received an email about that. If you have not received an email, there is no upcoming impact and results score for you. Impact and results rating is the most time intensive of all of our processes because it is so specific to individual programs and nonprofits. It's very limited there in that way because how your impact is very dependent on what your mission is, and what outcomes are important is very dependent on what your mission is and what your organization is doing. And so if you did submit information, we have been using that as we've been creating our impact and results platform that is upcoming, but it does not guarantee that you will receive a rating. You might be ineligible for one. Hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Masha.
Can I add to that just to say that we had a ton of interest, which is awesome, and now we have a backlog. And so we're working through that backlog as now putting a lot of emphasis on that. And we are focused, as Masha was saying, on using the same sort of tech that's in the portal that you saw, but putting a little bit more underneath the hood on impact, because it is such a more there's so much more to the analysis that we're working on things that would help automate as much as possible once you've done the submission. And so more to come. There will be heavy emphasis on this for us once we get through this release and heading into the next release. We're really going to put some focused effort on this.
Thanks, Stephen. Okay, so we have about 5 minutes left to get through some of the questions. Let's see if we can take perhaps another 3. A comment from an organization: some of the metrics seem to relate to larger nonprofits and might wind up penalizing small or perhaps volunteer-only nonprofits. Not having things like conflict of interest or whistleblower policy in place may affect those types of nonprofits. What can small, all volunteer nonprofits do about this?
It's a good question. Some 30% of the organizations that are evaluated in Compass have budgets less than $250,000. So there are a lot of smaller organizations. In the STAR system, historically, the minimum was $1 million operating budget. And so we're learning as we go. I will say on those particular metrics, we look how the market's performing. And so we make sure that the majority of organizations at that budget size have adopted that particular metric to make before we include it. And that's why on the audit and financial review side, we're not including that for smaller organizations because just the majority of organizations at that budget size have not done those things. So I do think that there's some value even for a smaller organization, for example, having a conflict of interest policy. What we intend to do is what Ophira was mentioning, is making sure we're providing some of the resources to you through the portal so that if if you wanted to implement a conflict of interest policy, well, here's a couple of policies you could use or places you could go for some help for that, right? And so one of our next steps with this portal is to help provide some assistance to you to not just do the evaluation and walk away, but say, here's how you can improve and provide some of those tools for you. So more to come on that, but that very much is our intention.
All right, thanks, Stephen. Well, we're closely running out of time, so I'm gonna squeeze 2 questions in. First is, what is the deadline for inputs to be included in the next release, or what time of year does Charity Navigator reassess or release the ratings? Who would take that?
Yeah, so we should get clear on a deadline in the next week or so. We have a tentative release for Encompass at July 29th, so it'll be a couple days before that. But we'll let you know, and we'll put that into the portal as a deadline. And like Ophira mentioned, our intention is to do a summer, fall, and spring release. That fall release is going to be as early October as possible to not hit giving season. That spring release is going to be in the March-April timeframe, and then the summer release is probably going to be in the July timeframe every year. And those are the windows that we're looking at.
Okay, great. All right, our last question. Here we go. If we're not rated for finance and accountability since our 990s has not been submitted electronically as of yet, would it be necessary to input pandemic information on the portal?
No, I mean, in short, you may want to, but I would do more of that storytelling in the adaptability. It is an upcoming requirement to e-file, so my other recommendation is to please start e-filing.
All right, well, we made it. It's now 3 o'clock. Again, as a reminder, this webinar was recorded in 24 hours after the conclusion of our broadcast. You should receive a copy as well as the handout. We really do thank you very much for attending our webinar today. We hope it was informative. If you feel so inclined to jump onto the portal after this broadcast, please visit it at charitynavigator.org/portal. Thank you very, very much, and have a wonderful day.